It's Reusse Unchained, presented by Josh Arnold Investments. And somewhere in a room like 5 years ago, the brilliant, and I don't say this facetiously, the NFL marketing executives are brilliant. They're the ones that said, let's make a primetime special out of the schedule order in May, right?
Yes, right.
Those same marketing executives got into a room, Pat, and they said, how can we spice up the first weekend of the playoffs? Wild card weekend, I got it. What if we call it Super Wild Card Weekend and put
really?
one of the games on Monday night, so we have 3 nights of football on Super Wild Card Weekend?
Doesn't that put the Monday night team at a considerable disadvantage next weekend? We used to always talk about the Mondays, but tough bananas, boys. It's going to get us some ratings, and we really don't care if that team is going to never win a game. Because,
and the problem for the Eagles is it's an extra day for Philadelphia fans and radio hosts to call for Nick Sirianni's job here. They get the whole weekend of calling for his job.
What happened to them? They are awful. What was who beat them as bad as they wanted to last weekend? Who was it?
The Giants.
Oh yeah, the Giants. That's right.
It's the Cardinals, you guys.
Yeah.
The Cardinals beat them at home.
Yeah, their defense is a train wreck.
About 7 weeks ago, about 7 weeks ago said that team is vastly overrated, and that wasn't exactly a bulletin, but man alive, did they hit the skids. And they made some moves during the season to shore up the defense too, didn't they?
They lost some they lost a couple key defensive front players, but then they drafted. I mean, they've shuffled some, but it wasn't supposed to be nearly this bad.
They promoted Matt Patricia and demoted their DC. When you promote Patricia, you deserve what you get.
Has he still got the pencil behind the ear? Does he still have that? Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right though. Philadelphia is definitely the world's jumping off point 50-some years ago for crazed sports talk radio with, everybody getting vile, getting ripped just viciously. So I can only imagine what the whole, not sports talk radio, the whole vibe now on more modern communication out there must be terrible.
One of the most fun shows in the old Mackey and Judd 4-hour tour. This is 6 years ago when the Vikings. We had a lead up of kind of trash talk with Eagles fans and even like an Eagles radio host and stuff. And then the Eagles destroy the Vikings in the NFC Championship game. And for 4 hours on that next Monday, Eagles fans were calling our show to just rub it in. And we were like, yeah, I mean, what are we supposed to say? 38-7. Yeah. If your name is Angelo from South Philly, the phone lines are open.
That wasn't the biggest Twin Cities media embarrassment that weekend, though. Mel Kiper and whoever his partner had me on, and I laughed at the idea that the Eagles even had a chance against this middle machine. They stink. The Vikings are going to name the score against those clowns, and then they come out there and because didn't they beat the Giants like 4-3 or something like that the same weekend the Vikings were pulling off the Minneapolis Miracle that the Eagles had.
It was the Falcons. They barely got by the Falcons. The Falcons almost beat them.
Yeah, Julio Jones missed a touchdown in the end zone.
Scoring, and 9-7 or some damn thing. And then you saw this team and you said, okay, this is you pull one out like that, you got to be going to the Super Bowl, don't you? And what did the Vikings score first in that game?
They did.
Rudolph.
They scored first in that game and gave up the next 38, whatever it was. Was that that was the beginning of the end for Zim? That one.
Nick Foles was doing the SKOR chant.
Oh yeah,
at the center of the field, late in the fourth quarter, and all the fans started to do the SKOR chant to mock the Vikings.
Is that one of the greatest phenomenons of the NFL in years, Nick Foles coming in here and winning a shootout with Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
That's crazy.
Throwing for 400 and some yards while Brady's losing to Nick Foles when he threw for 500. Did he throw for 500 yards here in that game? Wasn't it 500?
It was a lot. It was a lot. And then of course, I mean, this is where Philadelphia, usually you would do that, win a Super Bowl, and then you get at least 5 years of a grace period if you're the head coach and the staff, right? It's like 2 years later after that, they fired Doug Peterson.
But Doug might get himself fired at Jacksonville too, though. What they finished, lost about 6 of their last 7.
They did. It was a lot of it was so Trevor Lawrence had a high ankle sprain that he played through. If you look at Trevor Lawrence's number, he was like an MVP candidate, then the high ankle sprain, and he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. That's their baked in excuse, I'm sure.
Did they make the playoffs? They didn't make the playoffs.
No, they whiffed. They whiffed.
Pat, what's even more incredible about that Super Bowl being here is the 4 quarterbacks in those conference championship games were Brady, Blake Bortles, Case Keenum, Nick Foles. So it could have been a Case Keenum, Blake Bortles Super Bowl. That one even would have been nuts.
That should have been Brady's easiest. That should have been Brady and Belichick's easiest Super Bowl win. Shouldn't have it? It was. That's. I believe. That was the first NFL game I went to in the new stadium. I hadn't gone to a Viking game. I'd been in there for the Prep Bowl and other stuff, but I was boycotting the Viking game because it was too hard of work to get there. They had us some damn place. The game was a rumor up there. That auxiliary press box was anybody
end
else
zone,
up there
second deck.
Anybody know what's going on down there? I kept forgetting to look at the scoreboard. I was trying to look at the field. I should have just been looking at the scoreboard where you could actually see what might be occurring. They had us up, there were planes right near our head, right outside.
We had flashing tower lights on our heads so the planes wouldn't hit us.
It was brutal, but God, what a game. And it was, that was the game when in that game, was that the first postseason that they now all of a sudden they changed what was a touchdown rule in the end zone or something like
the catch rule?
Was it?
They cleaned it up.
Which, by the way, in retrospect, they didn't really change that much. But they made a big deal about it.
They changed it.
You didn't have to roll over 3 times with the ball in your possession for it to be a touchdown.
They changed it for that game, and they told no one. That was the best part, because that was the year where guys would bobble the ball slightly, and like 2 Eagles on touchdowns completely bobbled the ball, and thank God they're like, oh, who cares? It's a touchdown.
Yeah, let's go. That people are criticizing us for this, but that is something that the way they went in the tank, and Jalen Hurts at the halfway through the year was going to be the MVP, right? Or one of the candidates.
No, that's bad.
Okay, I got a hot take.
Oh,
who'd you rather have, Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields?
Jalen Hurts.
I think it's Jalen Hurts, but it's
a lot closer.
It is a fair speculative question compared to a year ago. It is a fair,
Yeah, that's right. So
I mean, Fields. I think what you would say about Fields was he really set up from the get-go? He kind of started off with there was no weapons at first.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he'd be an MVP, but you can make it. There's a lot of smart people that point to some of the scheme stuff, but yeah, they're both, man. I mean, they benched Hurts at halftime of that Giants game, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but they were still playing for the division at the time. They were still playing for seeding, and they said our best chance to come back in this game is Marcus Mariota, not Jalen Hurts.
Is that the backup? Following him around is not easy. Where the hell's he been? Sometimes these guys, they go to their backup and you say, oh, that's where he ended up. The guy who was gonna, think of all the heat that teams were taking back when Mariota first emerged. Why didn't we draft Mariota instead of this other guy? Everybody wanted him, and then he turned out to be a fraud too. So.
Yeah.
What's a very difficult position to satisfy the masses? Quarterback in the NFL. They will. Now Mahomes is getting criticized this year for not playing as well as he has in the past. Well, the fact that he's throwing to Declan and Judd and you doesn't help him. But
well, and now, did you see what the forecast is as of right now for that Dolphins Chiefs game? It's projected to be colder than the Seahawks Vikings playoff game at TCF Bank Stadium. So below zero temperatures with 30-degree below wind chills in that game.
The
and that's
NFL
the Miami Dolphins are coming up for that weather. Good luck.
The NFL loves those. That's why they always put Green Bay in not only if Green Bay was home this weekend, it would be a night game, right? Mm-hmm. If they were home they'd love the night. Let these poor bastards freeze their rear end off and we'll get better ratings.
Frostbite is a small price to pay for people tuning in out of curiosity what frostbite will do to a human.
Was Favre's last game in the Green Bay the frozen loss?
Yeah, right? Against Tom Coughlin's cheeks. Yeah.
In which he wanted out of that game like nobody's business too. Brett Favre had no interest in playing in that game.
Where's our big winter storm? I thought we were supposed to have. I was going to wake up. First of all, it was 2 a.m. Now it was 6 a.m. Now it's 5 p.m. We might get some snow. I don't.
It's crazy. I mean, even if it gets really, really bad between now and the middle of March or April, we've dodged 2 months of potential catastrophes, right?
It's fantastic. Unless you own a ski resort, then you might not like it. But it's been fantastic. But the NFL, I guess. Yeah, I kind of check in and out. There's not the only team I'm worried about. I hope the Lions win. I'm hoping the Lions win. I'm hoping they have a little run here because, 57 to now. Let's see, that's 43, 66 years of suffering. Is 67 years of suffering's enough, isn't it? Shouldn't they?
Yeah, but it's always hard when in any sport when you've got the narrative team, right? It's like baseball wasn't the same when the Cubs won the World Series.
No, that's true.
Like everyone's paradigm shifted, and
The Red Sox went from hey, amazing, let's make a movie about this, to cheap SOBs. Why don't they spend more money and try to compete? They're getting killed at home for not trying to compete with the Yankees and stuff. So the Red Sox, even more than the Cubs, I think, screwed up the narrative of that's why I say you guys got the T-shirts, before you die, the whole thing, before I die. I hope they keep this going, the Vikings, and I think
will you be a little angry on your deathbed if the year before the Vikings were?
Oh, it'd be terrible. Yeah, be terrible. I think it's something we can put our arms around.
If Pat is in a hospital in the third quarter of a Super Bowl and and the Vikings are up by 21 points and Pat's he's hanging by a thread, you just pull the plug on Pat before the game's over, is what he's saying.
I want to go out like the old columnist. What was the great columnist before Lee Montville there? He was a real wordsmith. God dang it, my memory is so terrible. But he, he'd written about the Red Sox for 50 years. A great writer, and not a typical crazed Red Sox writer. He was great, but he was on his deathbed dying. And he was in and out of consciousness, and Montville was there with him. He and Montville were big buddies, and the Red Sox. He woke up and he watched a few minutes, and that was when the Red Sox guy got hit in the head and the ball went over the fence. Was it Juan Beniquez? I can't remember who it was, but somebody, the outfielder, the ball out in right field, it hit him on top of the head and went over the fence, and he got a big smile on his face and died. The last thing he saw was a Red Sox player using his head to knock a ball over the fence in Fenway. That's the way I want to go out. I want to go out with the Vikings. I want to go out on Super Bowl Sunday with somebody dropping a pass in the end zone and losing the game. That'd be great. You
could be a strip sack fumble going the other way.
Right. Kirk Cousins getting strip sacked, and everybody picks it up and says, or Kirk. How about just Kirk throwing it under the sticks on 4th down in the Super Bowl when you're going to win the game? When you got a chance to win the game, that'd be great. Man,
That's just you see the 3-yard pass and your eyes roll back in your head.
All right, Lord.
He's now top 5. Kirk is now top 5 NFL quarterback.
We kind of touched on this with you the other day, but we had to go. But it is amazing. We had a listener last week send a pretty perfect summation of, if you're a Cousins Crusader, this is perfect for you, because you now always get to talk about the hypothetical Super Bowl and MVP the Vikings would have won in 2023 if Kirk hadn't gotten hurt in Green Bay.
They were on the cusp this year, weren't they? They were right there on the cusp, man. It was, if only Kirk, we would have repeated. I know they started 1-4, but they would have finished 13-4 if Kirk hadn't gotten. They wouldn't have lost the red. They would have been another 13-4. What's wrong with you people? If everybody else wasn't kind of going the same theory, LaBelle wrote a column about it and stuff, that they should go in another direction. My theory on this would be, he's overrated. Shut up. Let's move on from this guy. He's over. He gets, as I said yesterday, he can get you a field goal from the 8-yard line better than anybody in the league. First down on the 8. It's about 50-50 whether you're going to score a touchdown or kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Greg Joseph loves him.
He's padding Greg Joseph's stats.
Yes.
But don't you have to look to, in any individual year, you can make any number of excuses going back to Washington, right? You could just pick out a year and say, the defense was bad that year, or the offensive line had a guy that was bad, or whatever it is. But if you take a 10-year career, for the people that think Kirk is an MVP, that he's a top 5 quarterback, he's the unluckiest quarterback of all time. Can you name another great quarterback in your time watching football that over the course of 10 years, they didn't get to the third round they didn't get to the championship game? He's never come close to an NFC championship game. So I don't know.
And last year's playoff loss to the Giants in retrospect, is one of the most embarrassing ever, because they got beat the next week in Philly by 38-0, something like that.
Yeah, they got there.
And then they opened this season, got beat 40-0. So the next 2 games they played, they got beat 78-0 or 78-7, and we got beat by them at home.
Yeah, and of course, the defense shouldn't have given up 30 points to Daniel Jones, this, that, and the other. Sure, that's of course, true. But maybe the offense can jump out to a lead and dagger somebody too.
Anyway, meanwhile, the weekend, we got to find out if the Gophs are the Gophs. I'll tell you, I was reading Marcus's story today. We've created a dynasty here with these Minnesota players. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but it's been turned around.
8 championships coming in a row.
You're 3-1. With these Minnesota guys, okay, yeah, it's okay, but Wisconsin's got as many Minnesota guys as you do, and they're leading the Big Ten, right? That's one of the great transformations in my long career. We used to look at, when Mussey first came back in the 70s, and then for a while after that, Wisconsin, you looked at for 20 years as a win. You knew you were better than Wisconsin. It's amazing the run that Wisconsin basketball has gone on since the early 90s, because they used to be chumps, complete chumps.
Football
now they got
football too, same thing.
Yeah,
they were awful in football as well.
Yeah, they. I've told the story that I was over there when they were. I think it was Goody and Don Morton in a big shootout at the end of the year, and I was doing a piece on Don Morton trying to survive with the option offense down there, and I was walking with him through this trophy room they had. I was walking with him, and there were people in there looking at it, and they saw him come through there, and they turned their heads and went over to the other side of the room. They wouldn't even give him a hello, Don. I said, yeah, he might not be around here much longer, and he was gone at the end of the day. But the fans going, oh, that was maybe the worst college football game I ever covered. They had about 22,000 people in Camp Randall, and the Gophers and Goody and him battling it out, man, to see who was going to get fired first. It was a beauty.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, before we send you off into the weekend, tell the audience where they should be car shopping in the next couple weeks.
The snow's hitting at now 5 p.m. You still have time to get out to Jim and Brett Paul's Valley Group of GM dealers. Get that snow plowing SUV that's gonna. While the rest of us are sliding around in our other vehicles, you can get yourself a nice Buick SUV and be beating the snow by 6 p.m. tonight. Get out there, the Paul boys. Valley Group of GM dealers, Apple Valley and Hastings. As I keep saying, I've purchased my last 5 or 6 cars from them. I have relatives driving a truck and an SUV that was purchased there. Reavers is a proud owner of SUV from the Apple Valley store. So Jim Paul's Valley Group of GM dealers right now, prices are really good. Interest rates are good. If you qualify, and dang near everybody will. So go out there and check them out. Jim Paul's Valley Group of GM dealers, Brett Paul's Valley Group by Hastings and Apple Valley. I keep going back to them. There must be a reason for that.
Yeah, there it is. All right, Reusse Unchained on this Friday. Enjoy your super wild card weekend, sir.
Super wild card weekend. Which game should I watch? What's our game of the week? What's the best one to watch?
If you can only pick one game, I think it has to be Rams-Lions. Matthew Stafford going back to the house that Matthew Stafford built.
Go Lions! I'm all for the Honolulu Blue. I want to see him make a little run here. So.
All right. We'll see what happens.
It's always fun to see the crazy man on the sideline. So it's in his shirt sleeves wanting to fight everybody. It's great.
His red nose. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Jets.
See you, Pat.
Go Blazers. Let's see. Let's make it a little more respectable tonight than lose by 6. They got a good chance to lose back-to-back games by a total of over 100 points if they don't show up tonight. That'd be something.
It'd be great. Right. 62 points. All right. See you, Pat. Reusse Unchained here on SKOR North, the SKOR North YouTube channel as well.